Okay, so what else? We have to talk about Zelensky, and and before we go into Zelensky, I did want to point out tonight. Right? Tonight are the Oscars. So wait, Chenkov says, can you do alerts that only mods can trigger? I think. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. I'll look into that. Um, so tonight are the Oscars, and there's been a lot of Latin American movie Twitter, I guess movies Blue Sky, has been all over it for a while now. And I guess trans Twitter as well, because the main contenders for best movie are two movies that claim, one movie that is Latin American and one movie that claims to be Latin American. So it's basically Emilia Pérez versus Ainda Estou Aqui, so I'm Still Here, this Brazilian movie on the Brazilian military dictatorship. And I wanted to talk about that for a little bit because I feel like everyone has said something about these two movies. And I just saw Ainda Estou Aqui, so I thought I'd share my thoughts. Um, so I haven't seen Emilia Perez, but I have seen. So who did I watch that covers this? So I saw Jesse Gender's review. I also saw a little bit of Amanda the Jedi's. I saw who else did Emilia Perez review that I saw? I saw a couple more, but I don't forget. I don't remember which ones. And oh my god! So what I've seen, from the little I've seen and from the little I know about the plot, Dan Morel, thank you. How did you know? Yeah, Dan Morel did a review on Emilia Perez as well. That also covered all the racism and stuff. So basically, Emilia Perez is this movie about a trans cartel boss that transitions and uses Zoe Saldana's character as a lawyer to transition. And two things stand out. On the one hand, the main plot thing of the movie is she um, still really keeping her male persona after transition, and including dead naming and all, by the way, um, which sounds like the most trans exclusionary BS I can think of. That it's not like I don't understand how you can give this movie awards in 2025 if you're telling me that the point is that there's some you know um, essentialist argument about maledom, that you are violent and you're a gangster because you are male. And so even if you transition, then you cannot escape your maledom, and you will continue to persecute the people that helped you because you are violent by nature. Even there's even a rape scene or an implied rape scene. So trigger warning for those who want to watch it. When she goes to meet with her old wife, her ex-wife, and eventually, it rapes her. So it plays to all the stupid transphobic stereotypes about transition and trans women. So I was shocked by this storyline of let's explore whether you can escape your male programming in transition. It sort of makes male identity as a trap. And this is something that I hate as someone who I mean, look at what's in my desk. Look at what's in my desk. As a guy who loves unicorns and pink stuff and is very sensitive, cries with everything. I really hate the idea that being male has to be about being macho and being aggressive and being uh, basically sex driven. Um, I dislike that very much. I don't like the idea that that's the only way that you can define maledom. And so what this movie is doing is telling you that is what being a male is all about, and you cannot escape it. even if you transition into like and become, even if you are trans and you transition, you will never escape that. It's gender essentialism of the worst kind. I hate it. But in addition to the gender essentialism and the transphobia, there's also this like ridiculous argument, this ridiculous thing that the creator is a French guy who never even researched Mexico to do a movie about Mexican violence, like Mexican drug violence, and hiring actors and actresses that like aren't native speakers, like Selena Gomez, I think it is. And you know, look, I don't want to fault Selena Gomez. Like, I don't think it's her fault that she's cast in a role that requires her to speak a lot of Spanish, and the movie doesn't hire, a speech um, tutor or something for her Spanish scenes. Ideally, in my ideal world, you would hire someone who speaks freaking Spanish. But since you didn't already, at the very least, have a coach, right? Um, French guy and there is a rape scene, says Rosa Torrance. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to generalize, but there is a tendency to like include shock value in movies sometimes, especially for Oscar baits. But so yeah, there's this song where Selena Gomez sings, complaining about she thinks that her ex-husband is dead, and because she, Emilia Pérez hides her transition from her family and fakes her own death, right? And so her ex partner is mourning but also raging about the death because, I mean, she's sort of like abandoned in this very violent world, right? Of gangsters and like drug lords. And so she sings complaining about Emilia Perez. And she says one thing that drives me nuts. She says, uh, in English, what they wanted to say was, "I even took care of your kids. You're welcome," as in like sarcastic. You're welcome. Um, but then when they translate, because the song is in Spanish, they translate it to Spanish, and she says, and I'll say it in Spanish. She says, "Hasta cuidé a tus hijos. Bienvenida." Because when you put welcome on Google Translate, you get bienvenida. Because you're welcome is seas bienvenida, as in be welcomed to my home. But you're welcome as, oh, no worries, when someone says thank you, it's not bienvenida. It's de nada. So they literally used Google Translate to write that song. It's like, I mean, it's so patently clear to anyone who speaks Spanish that if you say, "I took care of your kids, bienvenida," you're saying, "I took care of your kids, welcome to my home," and not, "I took care of your kids, you're welcome for me doing that." Yes, ay Dios mío, indeed. Like, it's so freaking bad. And there's several other moments when like I I I struggled to understand the Spanish, right? I should not struggle to understand the Spanish in a Spanish-speaking movie, right? Odara says basura, pura basura. It's like trash, like just trash. And yeah, it is horrible, right? So, but this movie started like winning all the awards, right? So, what the hell? And strategically, they didn't release it in Mexico because they knew that Mexicans would be up in arms with this movie. Bernhard says, as an Arab, I totally understand everything you're saying, and it hits home so hard. I feel seen. Yeah, I mean, hey, I wrote an article about how the experiences with imperialism between the Arab world and Latin America are the same. So go check it out. It's called Bumbable Geographies. I did a stream about it as well. So I know you know basically. But then yeah, so you have this movie clearing out awards, and in the meantime, you have this other movie, this Brazilian movie. And you guys know that like Brazil has a special place in my heart. Like I love Brazil. I am totally going for that like honorary Brazilian citizenship in my life. Um, and Hayal Chankov says, shouldn't it be bienvenido, or is she singing about her husband after transitioning? Um, oh, I hadn't. Huh? No, no. Look. I haven't seen the movie. Okay, and I know that the movie that names Emilia Perez, which I will not do, of course. Um, but from what I saw in Jessie Gender's review, she says "bienvenida," which would add a further problem to the translation. Because if they are dead naming Emilia Perez, then it should be bienvenido. But like they say bienvenida because I think they're referring to Selena Gomez. It's feminine because it's Selena Gomez being saying bienvenida because she's a woman. It's I hadn't noticed, but yeah, it's even worse. It's even worse. Um, right. So while you have this flaming pile of garbage, um, there's also this movie called I'm Still Here, Ainda Estou Aqui, which is a Brazilian movie about the Brazilian military dictatorship. Also led by a Latin American woman, because the actress that plays Emilia Perez is Mexican herself and also a trans actress. So, I mean, Emilia Perez could have been great for representation. You really should check out like Jessie Gender's video. I thought it was the best review of them all. Um, Jacob says she's welcoming herself. Yeah, I don't know, man. And so there's this Brazilian actress Fernanda Torres, um, who does such a good job in that movie, and it's such a simple premise, and it's so timely. You know when Parasite came out, and it was competing with Joker. Oh, the actress is Spanish, but lives in. You're right, she's Spanish, but lives in Mexico, and she had a lot of like really problematic tweets because she's Spanish. um, but so there's this movie when Parasite came out, this like Korean movie, and it was competing with Joker, and it won Best Movie. uh, I remember a lot of like Americans were super pissed off because they said like, "Oh, how can Parasite win when Joker speaks to the plight of the everyday man, right? Like the it's so current." Because of course they hadn't seen Parasite, so they didn't know. Because Americans don't like subtitles. That's unfair. Some dumb American movie commentators don't like subtitles. Um, or at least they're not used to them. But like Parasite was super timely. Um, I love that movie, but I think it's the same, and I don't think audiences, particularly U.S. audiences, have realized. So is Ainda Estou Aqui. I'm still here. They think that the current one is Emilia Perez because it is about transitioning, because it is about Mexican gang violence, because it is about a trans woman. They think, oh, that's so current, that's so now, but they're wrong. The one that is very current and so now is I'm Still Here, because when you watch that movie, so the movie follows the story of Rubens Paiva. Rubens Paiva was this like former politician in Brazil, former deputado, so like congressman, um, that basically was a lefty, and he was helping to set up this like letter network so that people that had exiles in Chile and other South American countries that were fleeing the Brazilian military dictatorship could access their people, sent letters to their loved ones. And so he was like an intermediary. And that was enough for the Brazilian military dictatorship at its height, under Medici, who was the worst of the dictators, um, started to notice, and they got really mad. That was enough for them to get really mad. So he was disappeared. Desaparecidos is like a thing in Latin America where all the military dictatorships just arrested you, and then you never heard from that person again. So it's called the disappeared or desaparecidos practice, like enforced disappearance, I guess. Um, and so this is a very visible, very famous case in human rights in Latin America. One of the famous cases of forced disappearance in the region. And you can tell that story as this story of like this battle between democracy and dictatorship with like huge names and like I don't know, a big display of like fireworks and like um talk about the grand themes of how the military dictatorship in Brazil disappeared people and how there was a resistance and like there was a armed resistance. You know, Dilma Rousseff, the former president of Brazil, used to be in an armed group doing armed struggle against the military dictatorship. So there was like you can make this story about like the battle of huge forces, and that's not what Ainda Estou Aqui does, and that's what's brilliant about it, and that's why it's so current. That's why it's the movie that Americans in particular, but also Europeans, should be watching because in telling the story of this enforced disappearance, the movie never actually shows you this huge, scary, big, intimidating state apparatus called the Brazilian military dictatorship. It never does. The story is very self-contained. It's very like small scale. They show you how this person is, arbitrarily arrested and then disappears, and then how um, the family deals with it, including some family members being arrested as well for a while. And you get to see this Kafkaesque dealings with the state, the Brazilian state, the Brazilian dictatorial state. And the brilliant thing is that throughout the entire movie, you feel this weight. It's heavy to watch the movie, and yet you don't see any very violent scenes or anything like that. Like in terms of trigger warnings, there's a couple of scenes that very briefly depict or suggest that someone is being tortured, but you don't really see it. You barely even hear it. It's the banality of it all, the banality of evil, that creates that weight. It is not this like huge hegemon that is oppressing the Brazilian people that you see. It's a guy on a white shirt sitting in front of you asking you questions about your husband. And it's freaking terrifying. It's terrifying to watch. Especially if you don't know what happened to these people. Like everyone knows what happened to Rubens. Well, not everyone. Brazilians and many South Americans will know what happened to Rubens Paiva. I won't tell you. But not everyone knows what happened to Rubens Paiva's wife, kids, people in their lives, right? So it's terrifying to watch, and yet it's so small scale, so normalized, so like there's a protocol to do this. Like there's a way of doing this. It's almost as if like it's regulated. It's like institutionalized, and that makes it terrifying. It's the little aspects of things that you lose. You lost the right to file a habeas corpus. You lost the right to get a death certificate. You lost the right to get the police to wear a uniform. You lost the right to complain about politicians. You lost the right to a lawyer. All of these things that you're never shown that you lost them, but you just can see in the movie. Which is, I want to talk to my lawyer. No precisa. Like, you don't need to do that. It's fine. You lost that right. And there's this entire architecture that is just systematically oppressing this family. And you just know that it's thousands of families going through the same thing at the same time. And that's what's terrifying. That is what makes the Brazilian military dictatorship horrendous and terrifying. That you know that what this family is going through is happening to thousands of people in Brazil at the same time. And it's also so small scale. It's so personal. We tend to conceive, like, you see this movie like Civil War, the movie, the A24 movie, such huge scale to tell you that, oh, the US is going down the authoritarian route. This is famous scene of this guy saying like, hey, no, we're American, don't shoot us. And the guy says like, you're American? What kind of American? It's such a big display of authoritarianism, but this movie shows you that the weight, that stress that you feel the entire movie, that thing that stays with you in your throat, doesn't come from the big display of authoritarianism. It comes from the banal. It comes from the little things that you lose along the way. And because of it, every single American should watch it. because they will chip away at your liberties, they will chip away at your freedoms until you have nothing left, and you are in a dark, wet, damp room with a guy in a white shirt and a pencil and notes asking you questions in an interrogatory that shouldn't really be terrifying. It shouldn't really be terrifying to be in a darkened room with light on top of you being asked questions. It should be like, yeah, it's sort of like, I guess it's distressing, but it's not terrifying. In this movie, it is terrifying because this woman already lost so much and she never even realized it. And that's what's going on in the United States right now. They're losing things little by little. They're losing their state. They're losing their bureaucracy. They're losing their rights. They're losing the ability to say that like trans people exist, that they are real. They're losing their rights to abortion. They're losing their rights to healthcare. Soon they're going to lose Social Security, apparently, because I guess Elon Musk doesn't like it. And before you know it, you're in that little dark room with that guy in the white shirt, and you lost your state already. Everyone in the United States should watch that movie. Everyone in Europe should watch that movie. Not as a, oh, look at what happened in Brazil. Oh, those countries in South America had it so bad. No. You guys need to watch that movie and think, that's where we can end up. That's how you should watch that movie. It can happen. And so you need to act accordingly. So I mean, I thought, why not tell you this? Because like it stayed with that movie stayed with me. There's a weight on me still because of that movie. So I really recommend that you guys should watch it. And if there is any like doubt about which movie should win the Oscars, it definitely should be I Am the Stoici and not Emilia Perez. Please, let's just like forget that Emilia Perez exists and give this give all the awards to this like fantastic, amazing Brazilian movie, I Am the Stoici, I'm Still Here.